Hello again, everyone. I trust you had a decent Easter, such as it was, and that you could keep things a little bit going. I've heard a lot of different people, different ways they've done Easter egg hunts and different kinds of things. So I trust you had a decent, nice Easter as well. I have to admit, I am missing my organ bench, but no Hallelujah course this year. um, I'm gonna back up here. This what we want to talk about here toward the end of things is when we're looking at motivating reading and writing with well-known and new literacies. One of the things that we're going to do with this is we're going to define new literacies in this day and age with what's going on. So without motivation or desire to read, it's unlikely a child is going to learn to read well. That should be self-explanatory, actually. We have to motivate these little kids to begin to read and to stay with reading and to love reading. We need to let them know that yes, we read for information, but the other reason we read is for pleasure. We have to get these kids to the point where they can learn to read for pleasure, not just because they have to do a school sanctioned thing and read a textbook. We need to get them into reading. They need to know why they are learning to read and the benefits they will have at later life as a result of being able to read. You obviously know that. People who can't read are way behind the eight ball. People who have lesser reading skills or lesser literacy skills are way behind the eight ball when it comes to making things work in life. But I would pause here to say that in a lot of society today, we have become we have become enablers for people whose reading skills are less than what they should be, because you don't even have to go to a restaurant and order from a menu. You can point to a picture or call a number. Well, that's not really helping. And even road signs anymore, you don't have to really be able to read them because they have pictures or images on them. And we need to get our kids to the point that they want to read, that they would I would even go so far as to say they would be lost without reading um, with things. And I know my for myself, and I know my mom always said I was born with a book in my hand. That at this point in this time, I always read before I go to sleep at night, and I find myself going to bed early just because I want to read. There's nothing on TV, and I'm tired of sitting around doing this or that, or playing Candy Crush or whatever I'm doing. So I just go to bed early and I read. Well, to increase motivation, there's two kinds of motivation. There's extrinsic and there's intrinsic. The extrinsic is that you do it because it's a means to an end. You do it because you are told to do it. You read because you have to. And let's be honest, how many of us really, when the teacher said, I want you to read this or read that or read something else, yeah, 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 yeah. Some do, some don't. Most of us didn't. It emphasizes and surrounds external rewards such as prestige, good praise, or good grades. They have no reason. We give them no purpose, no reason to read, other than if you read this you're going to get a good grade, or I'm going to be really proud of you. For a lot of kids, for some kids, a lot of kids maybe, that's not enough. That's not enough motivation. The real emphasis must be placed on nurturing intrinsic motivation, which is the desire to engage in behaviors for the enjoyment, the challenge, the pleasure, or the interest. We have to get these kids interested in reading. There are, if we were to look at the model of the nature of reading comprehension, the interactive nature of reading comprehension includes four pieces. One of those pieces is decoding the words, word identification, that you know the words when you read them. And to know a word means that you can define it in context. we don't always do that. We don't teach these kids the vocabulary in the context in which they're going to find it. The another spoke in that wheel is that they have the strategies. We don't just use strategies, we teach those strategies to our children, so when we aren't there, they can figure out where the comprehension's falling apart and what they can do to fix it. Another spoke in that wheel is the vocabulary. We've got the word identification, we have strategies. Another piece, another spoke in that comprehension piece is interest. They have to be interested in what they're doing. If the interest is not there, the comprehension is going to be minimal, if at all. And the other one is background knowledge. Do they have the background knowledge to read or to be interested in what they're reading? That we have to instill that in them for intrinsic motivation. We have to get them somehow, some way, on some level, to be intrinsically motivated to want to read. We have to develop that for reading as well as writing. Some kids just don't want to write. Well, then have them record what they're saying. They need to learn to write. Remember, with the very young children, they don't understand yet that the words that come out of your mouth can be put on a piece of paper. They don't get that correlation. They need to understand that the books that they're reading come from the minds of someone else and they wrote the words down. Researchers have found that experiences that offer choice, challenge, relevance, and authenticity, social collaboration, and success work to intensify a child's motivation to want to read and write. In other words, we have to use a lot of those pieces that we've already talked about in other videos. We have to do the echo reading, we have to do the choral reading, the peer reading, the buddy reading, the read alouds, all of those pieces to get that socialization going and to help them understand that they can be successful. We don't want to give them an artificial sense that they're successful and just praise everything they do, because they're not always successful. But always remember that the research also has said for years, and it continues, that children who are behind in reading at the end of third grade will never catch up. When we talk about the end of third grade, the National Panel on Early Literacy defines early literacy as birth to age 8, which is about third grade, beginning of third grade through third grade for some kids, depending on when their birthday is. We have to give them choice. We have to let them make choices about literacy tasks, and what materials they'll read and write gives them responsibility and control over the situation, which leads to confidence. Sometimes it's okay to give the kids a choice. Would you want you're going to get to the same place, but do you want to read this, or are we going to read this? Do you want to do this, or do you want to do this? One or the other, but you have to choose one. And whichever one you choose, you're going to do the best you can with it, because this is what we're going to do at the end. We always need to set purposes. This is why we're doing this. This is why we're going to read this, or this is why we're going to write this. We need to let the kids know. But only provide a few choices at a time. Do not overwhelm them. They get overwhelmed very, very easily. But too much of the time, we feel that too many teachers think the little kids can't decide, make a choice on their own, so we just have to give it to them. It's like having a little child sitting in a high chair and you offer them either a cookie or a cracker. Which one do you want? It's your choice, but you may only have one. Well, we need to continue that, but we need to also do that with their reading material. But when we're talking about giving them a choice, we're not talking about walking into the classroom and saying, okay, kids, what are we going to do today? We're talking about giving them a choice with their reading material that they're reading on their own. Yes, you have curriculum that you have to follow. But for instance, when When I was teaching second grade, I would take my kids, we would walk up to the public library, which was downtown. And of course, I had all the permission from the parents and the board and everything to do that. And I had several kids one year that were hooked on Goosebump books, and I could not get them out of just reading Goosebumps. Well, that's fine, but I made them make a choice. They could take one Goosebumps, but then they also had to choose another book. And they had to bring them, bring them back in the next week or 2 weeks or whatever. But if they chose a Goosebumps book, then they had to also choose another one, and they had to read both of them. They were welcome to read the Goosebumps, but they also had to read the other one. I wanted to encourage them to read more widely. Don't just read one author or one genre, because the vocabulary is going to be different from author to author, genre to genre. So you can let them make a choice, but then you have to make them stick to that choice. Choice instills intrinsic motivation. You want to do this, that's fine, but then we also need to do this, as it allows children to play an active role in their educational experience as well as explore topics of personal interest. You may have kids. I had one little boy whose dad was a high school science teacher, and he just loved books about animals, in particular snakes, which I just absolutely loathe. I feel like there are only three kinds of snakes I'm afraid of, and that's live snakes, dead snakes, and sticks that look like snakes. And he and his dad actually brought a snake in the classroom one day for his show and tell. We did not let it out, but we did, he did bring it. But he always wanted to read books about snakes. Okay, that's fine, Logan. You can read your book about snakes, but then you also need to find a book about a different animal. You need to find something to broaden your horizons a little bit, which he did. And his parents were happy that we did that too. Tasks should not be regarded as too hard, but they can't be too easy. We have to challenge them, but you don't want to challenge them to the point that they quit, that they're going to give up. You don't want them to give up. You want them to do, but you want them to do within their realm and push them just a little bit above. If you remember Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, the your target area should always be at the instructional level, should be where they need a little bit of help. They're not completely independent, but it's okay to let them read a book that is a little too easy for them, or if they want to try something that may be a little too hard for them, that's okay. You can scaffold that read. This is one place where this is why I'm not thrilled with the with with the reading. Oh, I can't think of it right off the top of my head now. Oh, accelerated reader, because we pigeonhole kids into a certain area of reading. We don't want to do that. In my opinion, it's okay to have them read in a certain area, but to deny them reading books that are too easy or a little too difficult for them is denying them the opportunity to feel that sense of, hey, I did this and I'm really good at this, and you know what, I did this too and it was hard, but I did it. Teachers need to engage in scaffolding. I just can't tell you this enough. You have to scaffold everything you're teaching, every subject area, everything. You hold that safety net under them as you pull them up to where you want them. This strategy is where teachers model and support as your students acquire a new skill. Once you think they've mastered that skill, you don't just turn them loose. You still hold that safety net under them until you're sure they're up on that ladder rung solidly, and then you move the net up, and then you move the challenge up. We have to keep doing this with our children, especially with young readers, to get them to read a little more effectively. And we're going to stop right here for right now, and I will be back in just a little bit with another video.